Whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
On the Nikki Medoro Show, live on YouTube, noon Pacific or anytime, because that's how we like it. Great show coming up today. Clark Reid will be talking some tech news in about a half hour or so. We're going to start off with talking about that merger between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines. Full disclosure, they've never flown Spirit Airlines, and I don't know why I would want to, from the horror stories I have heard from people who have. If you have ever flown on Spirit, or if you've ever flown on JetBlue, which I have done as well, what do you think of this merger? Is this something that's needed? Do you think it's going to lead to rising airfares? Does it really matter because you wouldn't touch Spirit Airlines with a 10-foot pole? We'll talk about that in just a moment. Also, speaking of mergers and business decisions, Barnes & Noble is expanding, which I love. I'm one of those tactile readers. I have a book I'm reading right now. I mean, I purchased it. You know, it's not a deep thinker read. It's something fun to kind of decompress at the end of the day. But I love the fact that Barnes & Noble is kind of having a second coming, you know, this kind of revival. And how often do you go into a bookstore, and do you like it? So we'll touch on that. Happy International Women's Day to all the women out there. It is International Women's Month as well. So we'll have a bunch of stories dealing on that. In the first part of the show, I do want to talk about the new Barbies that are coming out that have to do with STEM, and 3 Bay Area women are being featured as Barbies. And is that something that is awesome? I think it's pretty cool. I also have this crazy story. You know, when we talk about International Women's Day, oftentimes we talk about Barbies and gender pay gaps and the way women are shown. There is an insane story. It came out last year by this female comic book writer, drawer, artist, about by what happened when she asked for more pay in Hollywood. Because, you know, there's these, you know, far off stories you kind of hear about in the news. And it was kind of this experience face to face, what was really being offered to her instead of actual money. And yeah, it's a crazy story. I tried to get her on. I really did. I've tried to get her on before, Amanda Dybart, because she writes some really great stuff, but I haven't been able to do it yet. So I'm going to tell the story because she wrote about it. It's crazy. And I included the story in the show notes. So we'll talk about that. Also coming up, San Jose, my hometown, they have this homeless database that is now up and running. And you can check it out. And you can see where the money's going, which on one hand, I think is great. And I'll play you a little bit of this KTVU report. They talked to, I think there was like a political scientist kind of saying, this is quite the gamble for San Jose's new mayor, because while this is supposed to be for accountability, when you're at the realm, buck stops with you. It is the right gamble for Mayor Mahan. So we'll see that. All right. But before we start all of those stories and much more, please click that thumbs up button. Helps the show. We absolutely love it. It's a big thumbs up. It's right below. I mean, you're here already, people. Click that thumbs up button. Also, thank you to everybody that's been donating. I have been seeing an uptick in our donations, not just on PayPal and on the Super Chat, which is live right now, where you could donate money during the show, but also on our Patreon. We have a lot of new Medorables out there. Hello, Medorables. So just go to thenikkimedoroshow.com and please consider being a monthly Patreon subscriber. We do have sponsorship opportunities. I want to work with some businesses if it's the right fit for this show, but the Patreon is really our main source of consistent funding as well. And so if you want to just join the crew and become a Medorable, as I love to say, please visit thenikkimedoroshow.com. We do want to thank our founding sponsor, Steve Moskowitz, 888 Tax Deal, MoskowitzLLP.com. He'll join us in a little bit. He is the guy to call if you have any tax questions, ERC, HR, accounting. He's the guy to call. And also PayPal, there's the email, the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com. That's also my email address for the show. And then finally, some merch. Working on some new merch. This is just a taste of it. There's shirts. There's a tote bag. I washed it, people. I know I had this yesterday. I have a coffee cup. There's a lot of merch, and that's another great way to support the show. And I absolutely love all of you that are already here in the chat. Okay, so let's get into it. So how many of you, and you guys let me know, how many of you have flown either Spirit Airlines or JetBlue? So when JetBlue first came out, everybody had a TV in the back of their seats, on the back of the seat. So you'd always have a TV. Nowadays, as long as they offer Wi-Fi, you can bring your phone and all that sort of stuff. I have flown JetBlue, I want to say twice in my entire life. And I have never, in the history of ever, flown Spirit. But all I ever hear about Spirit is it's crap. I mean, they nickel and dime you. There's no snacks. There's 28 inches of leg room. And as somebody who's short, I don't really mind, but that's small. That's not a lot of leg room. Their seats do not recline. And, again, everything. I'm surprised they don't charge you for the air that they pump into the plane. And then there's JetBlue, which, I think you make an argument to step above Spirit and others. Now, according to internal documents, the Department of Justice does not want this merger between JetBlue and Spirit to happen. This is what they say. They say the Department of Justice says when Spirit Airlines starts flying a given route, the average airfares fall by 17%. In the meantime, JetBlue estimates that when Spirit stops, so they no longer fly a route, airfares shoot up by 30%. Now, JetBlue claims it's going to increase its size with the purchase of Spirit so that it can compete against what's called the Big Four: United, Delta, American, Southwest. But I love this. The Department of Justice is basically saying, JetBlue, you're not even in the same league as the Big Four. You are not the disruptive force that you once were, and you're actually more of an ally, apparently, with the Big Four. Now, JetBlue's CEO has argued the merger was not like Pepsi buying Coke, and this is the analogy, instead would make his company a distant fifth largest airline, a Dr. Pepper, you might say, which is this quote in Morning Brew. Now, the last time there was a major merger in the airline industry, who can guess it? What was the last major merger? Anybody remember what the last major merger was for an airline? And I have never flown one of them that's part of this merger. It was back in 2016. Anybody? I'm going to give you guys a United Continental. No, it was not United Continental. You didn't have either one of those right. The last major airline merger was in 2016. And it was not United and Continental. The envelope it was Alaska and Virgin. It was Alaska Airlines and Virgin America. According to airlines.org, there have been 21 completed U.S. airline mergers since 2001. That consolidation has made it hard for new competition to enter. And between 2007 and 2021, not a single new airline startup has been formed in this country. So again, who has flown Spirit? Anybody? Anybody fly Spirit Airlines? Anybody give it a shot? Walter says, I hear Spirit is like lots of stops to go anywhere. My sister-in-law, I believe it was not Frontier. I believe it was Spirit. I think it was Spirit. And she got stuck during those major storms that were happening. She went out to Texas could not get home. I think she was stuck out there for a week because they kept canceling her flight. And again, they don't have any sort of communication with other airlines. And so she was pretty much stranded. Good job, Amy. Good job. Yeah, I think that when we're talking about a merger, you want to make sure that the consumer is protected. If the airlines, and let me go over those numbers again that the Department of Justice was saying. When Spirit starts flying a route because they're an ultra low cost carrier, average fares fall by 17%. That is significant. And when they stop flying it, it jumps up 30%. So they're obviously drawing a certain type of flyer. Not this one. There is no way in HE double hockey sticks that I am paying any amount of money to be stuck on a tin can flying in the sky. And I'm going to have 28 inches of leg room to try to escape if the thing all starts nosediving into the ocean. Oh, Harry says, my legs don't fit in the seats. I have long legs and my knees were jammed into the hard plastic seat backs. Spirit charges for both checked bags and carry-on bags, Randy says. Yeah, I mean, they nickel and dime you enough. I don't need to add to that. No, thank you. No, thank you indeed. So yeah, there again, so we'll see what happens. A decision has not been made yet because sometimes consolidations mean we get screwed on the back end. Yeah, JR, I've heard Frontier is pretty awful as well. It's kind of like Frontier and Spirit. Quick story. I think I've shared this before. When Spirit first launched, I think in Sacramento, they were giving away free tickets. And I stood in that line probably for way too long, maybe even an hour before I started doing some research. And I was like, this is nothing I want to be part of, because they were giving away free tickets or like for $50 or something like that. And then you saw what they were nickel and diming. And I'm like, I could just pay for a normal ticket and not literally be treated like cattle. So that's never going to happen. Never going to happen at all. So we'll keep an eye on that merger and see how that plays out. Now, a business decision that apparently has been working is with Barnes & Noble. Who goes into Barnes & Noble still? There is a Barnes & Noble in my neck of the woods in Almaden Plaza. I'm in San Jose, obviously. I go in there often. I want to say the last time I was there was probably 3 to 6 months ago. Something like that. I love going in there. I could spend hours in a Barnes. I could spend hours in a library, but if I'm going to buy something and buy a book, I go to Barnes & Noble. And I love being in there. And they sell all kinds of knickknacks and not just books and things like that. Well, apparently in 2019, Barnes & Noble was bought out by a hedge fund. Now, most of the time people are like, well, that's not very good, right? But apparently, according to this news article, the buyout brought along a new CEO, a man by the name of James Daunt, who apparently led a miraculous turnaround of the UK's largest bookstore chain, which is called Waterstones. So Barnes & Noble lucked out by bringing on this guy. So Daunt pushed for Barnes & Noble stores to quote unquote weed out the rubbish from their shelves. So they embraced TikTok's book talk, which is ingenious. So if I know that TikTok has this drama, but if you're on TikTok, there's so for me, if I'm on TikTok, I'll go on renter friendly stuff to do around the house because I rent this house. So you don't want to damage anything. There's renter talk. There's cleaning talk. Well, there's also book talk. And so they go on there and they're like, okay, what is going viral on book talk? And they get those books and they put them on the friggin' shelves, which is genius. They shook up deals with publishers. For instance, the chain stopped accepting publishers' payments for special displays. It was quick money, but it also saddled prime spots with books that nobody wanted to read. Okay, so it's like, okay, I could pay for front and center, but if nobody's really interested in that book in that area of the country, then Barnes & Noble's losing money. Now, the biggest change, according to this article, was actually borrowed from independent bookstores. Daunt gave local Barnes & Noble stores more authority to order what their readers in their area wanted to see. One woman says it's not an algorithm. It's not something that's dynamically pulled from a code. It's very much I read this, I loved it. I know this area really gravitates towards, for instance, beekeeping books. So I'm going to create the best beekeeping display because I can at my local store, which it doesn't seem like it's an insane idea. But, when you have a different business model, transitioning to that can be monumental. Look, they are expanding for the first time in years. Who would have thought in the day and age of Amazons and Kindles and things like that Barnes and Noble be expanding? Kim says that's unfortunate. Her Barnes and Noble is closing. I guess it's not doing well there. The lady Beatrice says, I love Barnes and Noble. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I am the same. I mean, I don't even need to know what I'm going there for. I really don't. I don't know. I don't need to know at all. Jim says, I visit Barnes & Noble in Pleasanton, San Mateo, and San Bruno. All right. Let's see. SF Tesla says the Bed Bath & Beyond next door is history. Oh, so the shopping center I'm talking about. So the shopping center, SF Tesla, you will agree with me. It's jam-packed with stuff. Just to give another shout out to one of my favorite restaurants that's going to be opening in that plaza. The Lazy Dog is opening there. I have to double check on when their opening date is. If you remember me telling the story from Station X, the Lazy Dog has deep fried deviled eggs. Oh my God, they're so freaking good. But anyways, they're going to open one there. There's like a Costco. There's a TJ Maxx. There's like a PetSmart. There's all kinds of stores there. The Bed Bath & Beyond took up a lot of real estate, and Bed Bath & Beyond isn't doing well business-wise. Chris says, I miss the hole-in-the-wall used bookstores. There's great ones in my neck of the woods. Downtown Campbell has some great used bookstores and independent bookstores. So yeah, I think that it's a great place. Yeah. As I've tested, look, we must live in the same area, man. We absolutely, woman. We must definitely do that. Let's welcome Kim McAllister to this show. So Kim, when's the last time you were in a Barnes and Noble?
I haven't been in a Barnes and Noble in forever. I've been in my local bookstore, which is Copperfield's Books in Petaluma.
Okay.
But Barnes and Noble, I don't even know where there is one. But interesting, we have an old gift card, so I should probably go find one and spend it. But Julia said, Mom, do you know there's a bookstore that actually has a cafe inside of it? It's called Barnes and Noble.
I was like, this sounds like Barnes and Noble.
I was like,
yes,
I know all about that place. Yes,
exactly,
they used to be everywhere. She's like, that is so cool. You can have coffee and read your book. I don't know if they want you to necessarily spill coffee all over the book, but yeah, you could do that.
Well, I mean, that's the great thing about Barnes and Noble. I mean, you could literally just take the book off, sit down, and read the whole thing. I mean, they're totally fine with you doing whatever. And that's what a lot of people do. They also sell knickknacks. They sell calendars. They sell, I could do a ton of Christmas shopping at Barnes and Noble, even if I'm not getting a specific book. I bought my husband one of the last time, it was around Christmas time, actually, because he wants to try to not make moonshine, but kind of brew his own liquor.
Okay.
Don't get started. My husband has what I like to call dreams of hobbies, right?
No,
so
I
we're
have
just
the
gonna
same
get all of
husband.
these things, and
The
then
same
like
guy. Yeah.
So I'm still waiting for my liquor, but I'll let you know how that goes.
So David roasts his own coffee.
Ooh, that's nice.
He used to, but now the coffee roaster broke, so we don't do that anymore. Used to buy like the green coffee beans from this place in Berkeley, and he would roast them to a certain crack. We had to learn all about first crack, second crack. Then he, during the pandemic, baked his own bread. And he's an amazing baker. So that was really good.
You're like, score there. Okay.
Most recently, he decided he was going to mill his own flour.
What? That sounds difficult.
Apparently it isn't. All you need is the machine. But then he bought the machine and sent it back because he realized it was just too expensive. He couldn't do it.
Wow.
But it's supposed to be like fresher, healthier, the guarantee of no chemicals and pesticides, whatever. I'm like, you're one step into being too hippy dippy for me to mill your own flour.
Get a little crunchy there, David. A little crunchy. Do you make your own wine? Is this
Yeah. There's
Is it good?
outside that window right there. There's 30 Pinot Noir vines. He
Ooh.
Yeah, the birds picked them all off the vine last year, but we've had a couple years where we had some nice wine. One year was really,
Wow.
really good. Another year,
Really?
it's a little sketchy. I don't know if we laid it down, so we're hoping that when we open it, it'll be a little better after a couple years.
Okay.
But
Wow.
yeah, it's called Julia's Vineyard.
Oh, I love
Because
that.
yeah,
Okay,
and
daughter.
so she and David usually harvest together, press the wine together, and go stir up the fermented grapes in the barrel together.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, there you go. See, and these are the things you can learn from books, right? And Barnes and Noble is expanding, and Barnes and Noble. I always say Barnes and Nobles as if there's an S at the end. Barnes and
Yeah.
Noble is
Yeah.
expanding, and I think that it's really smart. Before I brought you on, I was saying some of the changes that they made. You know, even though TikTok, I always have to say this when I talk about TikTok. I know TikTok is bad, but while it still exists in the United States, they have something called Book Talk, right? And so you can go in there and you see what's going viral, and it's genius to use social media online and then bring it. I don't know if you've heard of these books, and they were very hard to get. I even went to a Barnes and Noble and they didn't have them. There was a wait on Amazon. There was these books that my daughter wanted to read, this whole series. And I went in there and they're like, oh yeah, they sell off the shelves. And it's because they go viral online. Kids want to read them.
What's the book?
It's called Heartstopper.
Oh.
It definitely it deals with LGBTQ issues, but it's like a love story. And I mean, my daughter and her friends were, and it's a kind of a graphic novel-y book, devouring them. And I think there's maybe 5 or 6 in the series.
Yeah.
I think Heartstopper. I think that's what it was called, Heartstopper. Yeah. This was like a year or two ago that she was really into it. And yeah, it was very hard to get. During COVID, they really got into it. And when I went in to go buy the whole series instead of trying to order it, it was very difficult. I don't know who's calling me. But I
want to respond to Jess Martinez while you answer the phone.
Ah!
He says, I am rich as F, and that is absolutely not the case. When I say 30 vines, I mean like an area this wide on the side of my house with 2 rows, and that's it.
I was kind of imagining you with some property over there.
No,
yeah,
there's no property. It's really sad. But, you know, we squeezed all the space we could out of this really narrow side between a fence. There's a house next door, then their yard, then our fence, and then like maybe this much room to our house. So there's room for 2 rows, and that's it.
All right.
Yeah,
well, somebody's wishing us a happy International Women's Day. Yes, it's International Women's Month as well. I love this from JR. Thank you for your ability to bear children. The Raptors. Remember we were talking about that? Yeah, exactly. We procreate. We birth everybody. But I think there's something really nice. So this International Women's Day, the theme is digital. ALL, innovation and technology for gender equality. And it's to highlight the gender gaps in STEM education and careers, and then call attention to the online harassment women face, and that there's obviously still a long road ahead. And in honor of Women's History Month, they are, of course, releasing new Barbies. So there they are. And the 3 women on the left right there are the Wachitsky sisters, okay? Susan, Ann, and Janet Wachitsky. Susan was the longtime CEO of YouTube. Ann is an entrepreneur who co-founded and serves as CEO of 23andMe. And Janet is a professor of pediatrics and epidemiology at UC San Francisco.
Nice.
So KTVU actually was able to nab, and this was like all over the place, nab an interview with 2 of the 3. And I wanted to play some of it because on this International Women's Day, let's just hear from the women themselves, shall we? Here we go.
It's so exciting. You know, I had always been a fan of, you know, the Barbie brand. It's something that, like, again, as kids, we played with it. My Barbie was very adventurous. We went through, you know, we swam in milk cartons, and we climbed trees, and we played in the dirt. And we were talking with Mattel about all kinds of ways, you know, we can help encourage kids and toys to be involved with science. And they talked about this opportunity, and it was an incredible honor to you know, actually be recognized as a Barbie, and to really inspire kids to, you know, realize they can be anything. And that's really the best part about all of this, is that we want to leverage the play and the toys and something as iconic as Barbie and say, you can be anything. And my Barbie absolutely loves DNA and wants to teach you all about it.
Now, first off, let me just pause it right there. Kim, how would you feel if you were made into a Barbie? I'd be a little nervous. I'm like, it doesn't look anything like me. I feel like all
Yeah.
Barbies look the same, except the hair and the skin tone is a little bit different. But
You know what I like though? I like that instead of actresses and models and famous people, they went for women who are making contributions in the world of science
yes,
and business and put the spotlight on those things, like to tell girls these things are important too.
yeah,
These women can be really cool too. Look at how glamorous they are. Look what
yeah.
they do.
They are
I
pretty
lo-
cool though, and
that's
actually, their
cool.
facial
So even
features
if
are
they all
different.
have the same waist size and their pointy little boobs look all the same, it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, their faces are actually a little different. I thought maybe they would look, but look this picture that I have up there. They do look different, and they do kind of look like the people, and it is
Mhm.
really cool. Let's hear some more from the Wachitsky sisters.
And
Play.
Janet, what about for you? Because this really comes from this idea that science, that STEM is so important.
Yeah, I was super excited and, surprised on some level that there was, an effort to create Barbies in our likeness, but pleasantly surprised in the sense that, young girls, particularly in that under 7 age range, which is the demographic that Mattel is targeting, they tend to, start out with dreams of I'm going to be an astronaut, a scientist, and then they drop those dreams. And to actually have Barbies that are, real life scientists, engineers, there's another one, I believe, who is a space scientist, a microbiologist. I mean, to actually have those as potential role models for very young girls is something that Mattel and Barbie is hoping to use to kind of close this dream gap, which is the gap that young girls, where they actually stop dreaming, stop believing that they can become these scientists, these engineers, these STEM figures.
And I'll just stop it right there. It's a great interview, and again, thanks to
Yeah.
KTV for having that. But it's true. It's like, when you expose kids to things that they may either not naturally gravitate toward, or because of how society and classes just have this implicit background bias towards things. But when
Mhm.
you're like, oh, look at this really cool Barbie, and do you know what she does, and those sorts of things, I think it's great. And I think we're really going to start seeing a different makeup, different demographics in these fields, and we're already seeing it. I mean, there's a long way to go, Kim, but I think
Yeah.
and I hope that we continue to head in the right direction.
Well, look what the message to girls is, as they approach their, I would say all through childhood, but especially as they approach their teenage years, be beautiful,
Yeah.
be, have your body look like this,
Mhm.
be famous, do something that you get attention for your looks and your appearance, right?
Right.
Be glamorous, whatever. That's the popular girl. That's the one you want to be. But to
Yeah.
take the focus and give some glamour to these professions, I feel like, it says you don't have to be a model or an actress or whatever. You can be smart. You can be, really nerdy. And that's really awesome. So to
Yeah.
celebrate those professions, that's a big thing because it kind of it puts a coolness factor on them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I absolutely love it. Coming
Yeah.
up in the second part of the show, we'll continue to touch on some other stories surrounding this International Women's Day. And I do want to touch on, because we weren't able to discuss it, is the Texas judge going after some of those abortion pills, what that means. Governor Newsom taking on Walgreens. Is that the right move? I promise you, I will share that insane story about a woman in her own personal life experiencing the gender pay gap, and you will not believe what she was offered instead of more money, which is what she was asking for. It's a crazy, crazy story. And then, of course, as we lead into the Oscars, why not have a story about pitting one woman against another talented woman. And we'll share that story as well. But coming up after Kim's news, we do have Clark Reid on deck, and we're going to talk about some tech news. Yeah, everything from Elon Musk issuing an apology. Not for Twitter, though. I mean, not exactly from Twitter. Also, there's a new iPhone color, which I kind of want a little bit. He has a ton of tech news, so he'll discuss that as well. Before we do that, though, click that thumbs up button. It helps us out, and we love it. We love it. We love it. And now here's Kim with the news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Let's go right to the weather because that really tops the news. A new atmospheric river bearing down on California, raising the threat of flooding and structural damage as warm rain is forecast to fall on top of the state's near record snowfall this week. Weather experts say there is a 70 to 80% chance of heavy rain in areas where snow that's piled up over the last week could quickly turn into floodwaters, especially in elevations of 2,000 to 4,000 feet. At higher elevations, the rain could add to the weight of that snow, causing roofs to collapse. That happened last week in Crestline in Southern California, where heavy snow collapsed the roof of the only grocery store in that mountain community 3 hours east of Los Angeles, where they're still trying to dig out of the snow. Elon Musk, as Nikki just mentioned, is apologizing for mocking a now former Twitter employee with a disability. A Twitter senior director in Iceland, Haraldur Thorleifsson, tweeted at the CEO this week and said access to his computer had been cut off days ago, and he didn't know if he was still employed or not. You can't just lay someone off and not tell them, right? If you don't have access to your email anymore, you're supposed to figure it out. Well, Musk tweeted back that Thorleifsson did no actual work and claimed as an excuse that he had a disability that prevented him from typing. Thorleifsson has muscular dystrophy. He said he can type for only 1 to 2 hours at a time. Musk later tweeted, "I would like to apologize to Holly," who that's the man's name, his nickname that he goes by, "for my misunderstanding of the situation." It turns out this man had a company in Iceland, sold it to Twitter, and then had a deal where he, would work for them as well. So, I mean, I don't know what they expected him to do with muscular dystrophy, but that's asking a little much. Speaking of jobs, there were fewer job openings to start off the year, unfortunately. Looks like that is according to a new report, which says there were 10.82 million available jobs, down by just more than 400,000 compared to December's job openings and labor turnover survey. So again, it's down by just over 400,000, but it's still 10.82 million available positions. Not sure what type of positions, whether they're mostly menial or not, but it's a good thing, right? If we're looking for work. One South Carolina senator wants to take drug cartels, Mexican drug cartels, and basically identify them as foreign terrorist organizations. This is Senator Lindsey Graham announcing he will introduce legislation in the coming days to designate a group of cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. This comes after 4 Americans were recently kidnapped in northern Mexico and 2 of them killed. The suspect accused of killing 3 people and injuring 2 in a shooting spree in Central Florida is now claiming his innocence. 19-year-old Keith Moses pleaded not guilty earlier today for the deaths of Spectrum News 13 reporter Dylan Lyons and 9-year-old Tiana Major. Police believe Moses is responsible for a day-long rampage in an Orlando neighborhood last month. And I don't know if you heard about this one. It's kind of this story, Nikki, that makes me think of The Last of Us a little bit, only because of the fungi connection. Keanu Reeves is thanking scientists for naming a fungicide after him. In a study published last month, German scientists said they recently discovered a bacteria that kills fungus like John Wick, and they named it Keanu-mycin.
That's kind of cool.
Keanu-mycin. And this last weekend, the actor responded to the news during a Q&A event on Reddit, and he wrote, "Thanks, scientist people. He also wished them good luck and said, thank you for helping us. So Reeves' new movie, John Wick 4, Chapter 4, comes out on Friday.
I like Keanu Reeves. I will tell you, all the stories we ever hear about Keanu Reeves is he's the nicest guy, all this. I will tell you this. He's not the most dynamic actor, in my opinion. I mean, there are some roles that he was made to do, and hands down, like he's great at it. But sometimes when I hear him talking, I'm like, wake up, like a little more energy, Keanu. Like let's give it a little bit. Like he's just so mellow sometimes, and sometimes it works, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know. But apparently, great guy. Some of the roles I really love him in. Some of them I'm just like, maybe not the best.
There was a movie he was in that was. And what I love about him is his ability to make fun of himself, right? And not take himself too seriously. So this movie, what's it called? Always Be My Maybe. Remember that one?
What?
Always Be My Maybe. It came out, I want to say 2018, and it was filmed in San Francisco, and it was starring Ali Wong, Keanu Reeves. Always Maybe. It was a romantic comedy, kind of raunchy in a lot of ways, but in the movie he plays himself. And
I think he wasn't the lead though. I did see this,
but he plays himself, and it's a moment where he shows his sense of humor and that he doesn't take himself too seriously. He plays Keanu Reeves, and he's like supposed to be some hoity-toity actor, and he plays it like very Hollywood, right? It's really funny.
Good. Okay, I did like that movie. That's right. That's absolutely good.
So that's what I wanted to tell you. And I saw this story. Now I lost it. I just saw it and I wanted to share it with you. So I'll do it from memory. But basically, there's a story on Black History. I think it's blackhistory.com. And it talks about Dolly Parton. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, but apparently all the money that she made from the royalties of Whitney Houston singing the song she wrote, which was I Will Always Love You.
Right.
She took that money, which is a substantial amount, and she donated it to a Black neighborhood in the Nashville area. And apparently now, she never mentioned it, never was looking for any, pat on the back or anything else, but was asked about it 30 years later at some event and said, I donated it to this neighborhood because, I felt like that was the right thing to do.
Hell
so what a thing to, be that generous and never ask for an iota of recognition.
I love it. Well, that's Dolly for you, right?
Yeah, that's Dolly. Class act all the way. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, it's 888-TAX-DEAL or MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on the Nikki Medoro Show.
All right, perfect. Well, you did touch on it in your news, of course, and that was Elon Musk apologizing after mocking, apparently, a disabled employee on Twitter. He also said something, I think it was this morning or yesterday, about how tweeting is not the best way to communicate. It's better to have face-to-face conversations, which is just quite the own. But let's talk about that story and much more with our friend and former KGO tech guy, Clark Reid. Hey, Clark. So good to see you.
Hey, Nikki. Hi, Kim. How are you doing?
We're doing good. All right, so let's start off with the Elon Musk apology.
Sure.
It's kind of rare to hear him actually say he was wrong.
Rare, maybe the only time, that I can recall. But, this guy, as Kim said in the news, sold his company to Twitter before Elon bought it. And for a substantial amount of money. Musk made fun of that, too. So, he's already got a lot of money and he's just coming after more. Well, it turns out if they fire this guy, in his contract, he gets $100 million more. He's already going to get a big payout. But I suspect that the attorneys got on the horn to Elon, said, dude, you apologize on Twitter now because the lawsuit's going to be just prodigious.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy's going to get a ton of, and this guy was made Person of the Year in Iceland last year. He's a big deal, and he is in a chair. He does have MD. He is disabled, for heaven's sakes.
One of the reasons I read that he was Iceland's Person of the Year was because of the way he chose to be paid by Twitter for his company. So instead of taking money in one way, he chose to take the paycheck, which then means that he has to pay taxes to the general welfare of the people of Iceland. So that was the story.
That's cool. Yeah. So, an all around good dude, and Elon just, was Elon, like he always is. And he got caught on this one. This is a bad deal for them. So we'll see. But Elon is now claiming that it's just close to turning around and Twitter is going to be in the black before too long. This after losing half of their advertising revenue. And, it's like, that's not going to happen.
No, Twitter is not what it used to be. Can I just ask you a quick question on the other company, which of course, Tesla, they're saying now this crazy crash that happened, the car was on the self-driving mode. Do you think, every time I hear these stories, I mean, obviously it's important that the car was on that autopilot mode. Do you think that it's a fair criticism to always mention when Teslas are in these crashes versus it's not often that you hear, there's a car crash with a Honda or a Toyota. But when it's Tesla and using that technology, it could hurt the company and their stock price.
Yeah, it does. But I think that a lot of people, it's called autopilot. He's promised every year for the last 6 or 7 years that it would be actual autopilot, and it still isn't. No, it isn't. And, I know of an instance where there was an engineer apparently a couple of years ago or so that was testing a beta of it. And he was driving home, fell asleep, and he woke up in the driveway at his girlfriend's house. The car drove him all the way home through the East Bay Hills.
See, that's crazy to me. Like, you should be awake. And I would fall asleep. If it's auto mode, and I remember that long drive back and forth from San Francisco and San Jose, Clark, there were times I was like keeping my eyes open.
I hear that. But they've got a bigger problem than that right now. They have the government coming after them. There are 2 Model Ys that the steering wheels come off while they were driving. While they're driving. I thought that only happened in like comedy movies, but this actually happened to a couple of people. So there's a new investigation now for.
Is that because do you think there's some sort of, with the manufacturing and the assembly line, like what's going on with Tesla and all these problems? I
think that, Elon is a libertarian. You only get 2 weeks of vacation a year, no matter how long you work there. They didn't give any paid time off until the government made them. And I think that, they fought the union, and I think a lot of the employees are not the happiest in the world in those plans.
They're not like screwing in screw Elon, and we're not screwing in the steering wheel either. So there you go.
I think their quality control isn't maybe as good as it ought to be. That's what
they're slashing prices of some of the cars.
They cut the top Model S by about $15,000 more dollars. And they cut the top Model X also. It's now to like $99,990 now. So,
wow.
And the top Model S is 112 instead of 122. So there's still a ton of money. And the problem is the Model S, which is what you call in the car business, their halo model, since they don't have a sports car. It's their top of the line. That hasn't been redesigned since like 2013. Well, the German car makers will go like 6 years, and that's a long time, maybe 7, but going that long without a good refresh is really unusual in the car business. And I think people are going, we've seen it.
Yeah, it's nothing new.
Yeah. What I don't understand about the cutting of prices at Tesla is that it seems like if you want to buy a Tesla, I had a family member who did that recently, wanted to buy a Tesla and had to sign on a waiting list and had to wait 9 months for the Tesla. Yeah. And so if they're in such demand that you have to wait for one, why cut prices?
I am not sure why he cut the prices on the S and the X, to be honest, because that still doesn't qualify him for the $7,500 from the federal government, the discount, which, by the way, if you're thinking about buying one of those cars and you're going to buy, one of the cheaper ones, a Model Y or a Model 3, you've got till the end of this month to get that $7,500, and then that goes away because Teslas don't have 100% made in America batteries yet. Nobody does, and so that's a contingency in the bill that passed last summer. So buy the sucker if you can get your hands on it. Buy it now and take delivery before the end of the month so that you can get that $7,500. Little PSA there, public service announcement for you car buyers.
Clark Reid with the PSAs. Let's also talk a little bit about Twitch. For people that don't know, Twitch, explain what Twitch is for people.
Well, I mean, Twitch is it's a platform, but it started out as a platform but for chat amongst gamers.
Yeah.
99%, but it's expanded. I mean, they've got cooking channels. They have all kinds of stuff now. And it was bought by Amazon a few years ago. It's owned by Amazon, but they've pretty much been hands off with Twitch. And I know I don't use it. I have a son who's a gamer and who's in IT, and he and his friends all use Twitch all the time and chat on that, among other, they're not on the normal social media that a lot of us are. But Twitch has been kind of free and easy and hasn't really been too locked down like a lot of other. I mean, I just got out of Facebook jail again after 90 days for.
Oh, look at you, Clark Reid. What are you posting on there? Jeez.
I will tell you, since this isn't going on Facebook and I won't get slammed again, I was on an engineer page on Facebook.
Okay.
We were talking about bad weather, which we're expecting again here, and how, you have to take care of the equipment. And I posted and said, well, yeah, I said, I can remember having to go bombing out to the transmitter site at, high speed to get the station back on the air. And the algorithm came and said, you made a terroristic threat. You mentioned an explosive. And there's no appeal. There's no human. There's no nothing. And so, and I'm going, if anyone used English as a first language had seen that, they would know what I was talking about. I was talking about turning the station back on the air as a public service, but no. So thanks, Zuck, you bozo.
Don't get Clark Reid angry. Oh my goodness.
I tell you, man.
Well, Twitch is doing something that I'm really happy about, and
it's about time.
It has to do with deep fakes. Explain what they're doing.
Okay, well, what a deep fake is, and they've been doing this for several years, is they take, almost always a woman's face, and they use the technology to put it onto a video, normally a video, not a picture, a video of another naked woman's body. And they paste them, and I've seen a couple of them. They're terrible, but they're doing this. And this kid, who's a big Twitch streamer, apparently did it accidentally. He left a browser tab open, and you could see it, and you could see 3 or 4 big Twitch female streamers, with their faces pasted on these naked lady bodies. And they were, needless to say, extremely upset.
I would think so.
This happened on January 30th, and finally Twitch is getting around to putting in, but they've gone all the way. I give them credit. They're doing what they're calling an insta ban. There's not going to be a warning. If you do it once, accident or not, they are going to kick you off of the platform, which they damn well should.
Exactly. You know what? I mean, deep fakes kind of freak me out because just like the filters on pictures and TikTok and all those, they're getting better and better and better.
Yes, they are.
And I don't know how we're going to tell them.
And you have a teenage daughter, and I've got teen granddaughters, one's 17 and one's 14, and this crap scares the hell out of me because they're in that age group to where, anyway, you can't protect them from everything, but man, that really bothers me. That
absolutely, I would be so upset. But I'm glad that they're doing it. Hopefully, others follow suit. So
I hope so. I mean, others have rules, but they haven't gone to an insta ban, and I really give them kudos for doing that. It's like kick them off. I don't care what the deal is. That should never ever, get out there.
That you're even doing it in the first place shows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just picked up my phone. My favorite color is purple. Okay. But I'm just gonna say this. I kind of like the new color of the iPhone.
Yeah, the yellow, and it's
I know, right?
Pre-orderable, and it will be actually out in the wild. You actually be able to buy it by next Monday too, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so that's happening.
Is this just a new color? Is it, or is there anything new happening with this?
Not a damn thing. It's just the color. They do this. I mean, they did it with the purple. They do this every spring, really just to hypo sales a little bit, because it's 6 months till the new phones come out, and the sales will kind of taper off and everything, and they want to give it a little kick in the pants until the new phones come out September. So they come out with a cool new color in the springtime.
Perfect thing for your Easter basket. Just plop it right in there.
And it is cool. It is cool. I mean, it's nice that when mine, I'm going to replace it this fall, but mine's like 3 years old and it's in a case, but it's the blue color that had come out, And
I like the purple. And it's all sparkly case.
I got the
Yeah.
silver.
Yeah, I mean, you just, and so I'll have to decide what color I'm going to go with, in the fall. But the yellow, I mean, it really pops. It's a pretty color.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's good. I mean, you say in 6 months we're going to have new iPhones.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to me. I only buy a new phone if there's something seriously wrong with this phone.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I'm not one of those going with every new tech thing.
Well, I waited. This will be 3 years, and I did it on purpose. They're supposed to come out with what's called a periscope lens. It's a lens that folds inside the case of the phone and gives you a longer telephoto. And I'm hoping it's going to be like 10 power, because I've had attachments and stuff to get telephoto, but I like to shoot my grandgirls when they're doing their gymnastics. And of course, you're up in the stands further away.
Right.
And if I had the zoom built right in the phone, I could, shoot their floor routine or their bars or, the beam when they're doing that and get a really good video of it. And that's kind of a big sales point for me. So that's what I'm looking for.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
We were talking to start the show off about, consolidation and companies merging. There's a new partnership going on between Microsoft and Mac. Which seems odd to me, but what's going on?
No, Microsoft first made Windows available on the Mac years ago, and had quite a partnership back in the day. Jobs and Bill Gates were still rivals, but they had dinner together. I mean, they were kind of friendly rivals. And so for a long time, the products were available on Macs since the early 90s. And now they have jumped in, and they're kind of getting back into the business again. They're offering basically a free full Outlook app on the Mac. You've had this on iOS, but now you're going to be able to get it on the Mac and be able to use what Mac calls handoff, where you can maybe I read your email, Nikki, and I'm going to start typing, and I don't want to do it on the phone. It'll transfer it to the Mac, and I can finish typing it there and then send it off and use Outlook. Well, I use a consolidated Apple mailbox, but of course, Apple doesn't allow Outlook in their mailbox, or your company Outlook or whatever. You can't pour that in. And this will allow that. And that's going to be pretty cool. That means one mailbox for everything. All your mail can show up that you want to. I mean, you may have a junk mail account, which a lot of us do. That I give out to people, if I don't want them to, and it goes in there.
For all those subscriptions you're subscribing.
Yeah, exactly. It goes in the black hole mailbox, and I don't.
Spam at clark.com, right?
Yeah, that's it, man. Well, I'm not quite that gross, but yeah.
Exactly. There's another partnership between Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, and it has to do with our minds. Explain that.
This is really cool. I mean, a lot of us have heard about Neuralink, which Elon Musk started and has the implants, but they killed a bunch of animals trying to do this, and the government's investigating them, but they have to implant and drill into your skull and all that. Well, this system that is backed by Bill Gates and by Jeff Bezos, it's called Synchron, and they just run basically a wire up your starting in your leg and run it clear up into your brain, just like if they're putting in a stent in your heart or what have you. And so that technology is very well developed. It's not, doesn't screw up your body. And this thing doesn't even go into the brain itself, which apparently our brains are pretty touchy about having devices actually implanted into them. This one picks up with a little transducer receiver, picks up your brain waves, and it transmits it down to a box in your chest they implant that has a little more power in it, and then you can control like a mouse or a trackpad on a laptop or your home automation, what have you. And so far they've implanted it into 3 people with no problems, and they're hoping that they'll be able to continue this and help people that have limited or no mobility. Well, like the guy that Elon Musk was making fun of. This would be a great help for him, because he could just use his brain and move the cursor around on the screen and type and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was trying to show the picture of the stent thing, but it's not popping up.
It looked a little weird, but yeah, I saw that. But that's what this is. Synchron. It's the device is called the Synchron Switch.
Interesting.
Oh, there it is. There's the stent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I mean, if you guys can see that, I wanted there to be a white background, but apparently it's just clear on there.
That's a very, I mean, it's a completely mature technology. It's a little spooky, though. I had this done before a surgery a few years ago, and they don't knock you out. And they're running this thing up my leg and up into me. And the doctor has this young resident woman doctor, and then he had an intern junior woodchuck boy doctor standing there. And he's talking in his doctor voice, the very soft,
And you're like, oh my God.
And I'm like laying there, and he said, now, doctor, he said, you want to turn it like this and that, and he's teaching these two younger doctors how to do this technique. But I'm just laying there, and and they're playing music, and I'm wide awake.
Well, that's how angiograms work, right?
It was an angiogram. They're running this devil right up into your heart and looking around. He goes,
yep.
Well, Clark, he said, actually, there's no blockages. This happens sometimes. It was a false alarm, and it's still in this soft doctor voice and everything, which it cracks me up. It's like, oh, come on, just speak English.
We're not on the smooth jazz station.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it did tickle me, but that's what they do, and so that's good. And which I was glad they did the procedure and that I was fine. That's cool. Yeah. But that's how this new gadget, the Synchron, works. Just goes up through your arteries, which is neat. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Last story, Clark. Meta. More layoffs are coming. What is going on? And I guess we can't look into a crystal ball, of course, but what is changing? Like, where are these layoffs going to be? And what is that going to mean for Meta as a company, Facebook, things like that?
I think what they're doing, at least this is what they say they're doing, is that they're going to leave it up to the middle managers and the supervisors to pick out the people to lay off. Hopefully it won't be like 11,000 like it was last fall, but they did come out in a statement and say, we kind of overdid it and probably hired too many people during the pandemic when everyone was at home and they were working from home, but they were on Facebook a lot and they're on Instagram a lot. And so they really staffed up. Well, since that went away, the usage has gone down. People aren't visiting their social media platforms as much. And so the advertisers have noticed this and they've cut back the advertising.
Makes sense.
So, Zuck's allowance has gone down and he wants to get that back. So he's cutting some staff.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about, that they overhired when at the same time we're seeing headlines all the time of so many places with so many job openings. And so I guess it's just finding that kind of niche that is really hiring right now.
It's kind of the sweet spot. I mean, I have a family member that's in IT that had been talking to them and they kind of wanted to, do something. And then they kind of backed off after the pandemic eased up and all that kind of jazz. But as of in a lot of tech businesses, this particular person would have liked to have gone to work for them, but he had a really, really nice pair of golden handcuffs from his present company, and his stock hadn't matured yet. And it's like, I'm going to wait around a little bit. I kind of want to cash out that big payday.
Yeah, you definitely want to make it worth it, and especially when they're dangling those golden handcuffs, as you call
That's right. I mean, hey, we should add that. Of course, in radio, it's a golden trade out for a meal at Max Steakhouse or something. Here, go get a bag of fries and a free Frosty.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh well, we got nothing but a howdy doody to you when we left Station X. So I'll take a Frosty, Clark Reid. I mean, geez.
Sure.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can make this a weekly thing. Clark Reid, former guy over at KGO, but now with the Nikki Medoro Show. Clark, have a great day.
Hey, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye. Yeah, I just love Clark.
He's awesome.
Those layoffs, with the news that interest rates are going to keep going up, we're just going to see more headlines like this. It's just going to happen. Al Anonymous, though, made quite the comment. I like how when Twitter lays off thousands, the media goes crazy with vitriol. Then Microsoft, Intel, Facebook, and more follow suit, but no outrage. Media bias is stupid and obvious. I think that when we're talking about Twitter, there's a whole other story behind that. You know what I mean? And I think that the way Elon Musk was firing people was the story, right? I mean, that was kind of the story. What people had to do to keep their jobs. That's the story. It's not just the layoffs. I mean, layoffs are happening all over the place. They're happening at Google. They're happening at all sorts of places. But when you're dealing with someone like Elon Musk and how he's doing it, that's the story there. Okay, we're going to do Kim's news in just a moment. I do want to get into some International Women's Day stories, but I also want to touch on the San Jose homeless dashboard. It's a very interesting thing. I said this before, Matt Mahan, my current mayor, the new mayor of San Jose, he wasn't the one I voted for. I voted for Cindy Chavez, who of course was kind of the longtime politician, but I felt had the experience necessary. Not that I didn't like what Mahan was saying. He's just kind of a newbie, but he's the guy. And I'll play you a little bit of a report about this dashboard, but I want you to tell me if he's making a rookie mistake or if this is just responding to his promise and what people truly want. So that's going to come up. Plus, I got this crazy story about what a woman was offered when she wanted to close that pay gap, that gender pay gap, and what her boss offered instead. It may just blow your mind. Click that thumbs up button before we go to Kim's news and stay tuned because that story is absolutely nuts. Here's Kim.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. In Fairfield, the remains of a woman reported missing in mid-February, now been found in a rural area in Fresno County. The Fairfield Police Department saying yesterday that detectives were able to recover DNA from the burned remains, and they were identified as that of 53-year-old Abu Anand Hobson. There she is on the right. Her 61-year-old husband on the left, Gregory Grant Hobson, is now being charged with 1 count of murder. Anu was last seen February 13th in a search for the couple. Police found Hobson driving the couple's car February 16th. At the time, Anu was just missing, but police believe she'd been killed. Detectives still investigating, and a motive has still not been released in this case. Governor Gavin Newsom's calls to cut ties with Walgreens could really spell trouble for this pharmacy chain. The attorney Dan Eaton is now saying that the governor's remarks could mean an end to Medi-Cal and other insurance partnerships with Walgreens, which could ultimately affect more patients, not just those seeking abortion pills. Eaton says the state is a big buyer of pharmaceuticals and Walgreens sales could be impacted. The chain could also lose out on reimbursements from the state for participating in certain prescription drug plans. Governor Newsom's remarks came after the chain decided not to sell abortion pills in at least 20 states after facing legal pressure due to strict abortion laws. By the way, it is legal in those states where they're deciding to cave to pressure and not sell the pills to women. The FBI and the police releasing more details about a man who allegedly was stockpiling explosives in his house in San Jose. Yeah, this one is a man that allegedly blew up PG&E transformers around San Jose. His name is Peter Karasev. He's 35 years old. In San Jose, he lived on Potomac Court. That's important because police now say that entire neighborhood was at risk. Officers are saying this man lived in this house on Potomac Court with his 3 young kids and his wife until just last week when he was arrested. The bomb squad called out. The San Jose Police Department bomb captain saying the entire Potomac Court neighborhood, as well as a school across the street, faced a huge danger because of all the explosives that were inside that house. Police say they found chemicals, drugs, and firearms within easy reach of children, and his kids lived at that house. 1-year-old baby, 3-year-old daughter, 5-year-old son, all living in that house. So yeah, this is a serious issue, and this man now facing charges. In Memphis, police are saying that, here's a picture of Tyree Nichols, they are delaying the release of additional footage from the beating of Tyree Nichols that turned deadly. A judge ordering the delay after an attorney challenged one of the former officers charged in the death. The additional footage from January 7th was expected to have audio from after the beating and more footage after an ambulance took Nichols to the hospital. But again, the judge delaying the release of that footage. Officials in Cincinnati say that you've heard of Cocaine Bear? Well, I guess you could call it Cocaine Servant. Yeah. So this is a servant found roaming around a neighborhood testing positive now for cocaine. They said, yeah, when Hollywood turns to real life, they said
it's going to be Cocaine Bear versus the servant. You can already see this happening. You can already see it.
Yeah, that's the next. It's a sequel. So yes, this leopard, quote, leopard seen in a tree in late January, and it was determined the cat was a serval that is illegal to own in Ohio, where it was found in Cincinnati. But a narcotics test showed this serval was exposed to cocaine. And so this cat has been taken to the Cincinnati Zoo, where it is now being cared for and recovering and coming down off of its high, apparently. I don't know if it necessarily attacked anyone when it was all high and jumped up on cocaine, but
let's just go with it did. It makes a better movie.
Yeah, exactly. Watch out, lock your doors, keep the kids inside. Dole Whip. This is my son's favorite treat. He had to recently write a report at school about your favorite sweet treat. And he wrote all about the Dole Whip and how not only is it delicious and cool and tangy in your mouth, but that it because you can only get it at Disneyland, it also brings great memories with it of all the times you were at Disneyland and had this treat. It's a cute little paper on the Dole Whip. Well, now it's not only going to be offered at Disneyland. The Dole Whip is coming to grocery stores. Dole announcing 11 new product launches for 2023 as it transforms, it says, into a purpose-led nutrition and wellness company. So a newly formed leadership team plans to release new products without processed sugar, cut waste, increase access to fruit-based nutrition. Some of the new products include a light pineapple juice drink, smoothie bowls, and the iconic Dole Whip in 3 flavors. So not only pineapple, but I think mango is one of the flavors.
Yeah, but is it going to have the swirl? I mean, there's something in how it's delivered. If it's packed in like a normal ice cream, it's not going to be the same. You know what I mean? It has to have the swirl. It has to have the air in it. I have found other places doing a Dole Whip. Ice cream shops are like, we have a Dole Whip. So I don't know if it tastes the same. I haven't tried it. The only Dole Whips I've ever had are the ones at Disneyland. And then I tried to make it at home and it did not work out. Or it didn't taste the same. Maybe it just tastes better because you're in Disneyland too,
It could be. We'll see. If I came across Dole Whip in the grocery store, that thing's going in my cart. I'm trying it.
Okay, well then you get it. So when is it going to be available in grocery stores?
I don't think they have issued a date on that.
Yeah.
Soon.
We'll do a food segment on it. How about that?
We'll do the Dole Whip. I'm down with you in all 3 flavors, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Yeah. Somebody says Dole Whip soft serve pineapple ice cream offered at a movie theater near me in Sacramento. They do have. I've seen the advertised like Dole Whip. I've seen it in other places. That's what I'm saying. Does it taste exactly the same? Or will it never taste the same because you're not in Disneyland? I don't know.
Right.
We'll do a taste test.
I'll keep the Dole Whip up there with the castle at Disneyland in the background while I tell you that this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. This report is sponsored by Mr. Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL, MoskowitzLLP.com for more than 30 years. He's been putting his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. He's the one to call if you need help with your taxes. And again, you can see the information right there under the Dole Whip at MoskowitzLLP.com and 888-TAX-DEAL. So our thanks to Steve Moskowitz. I'm Kim McAllister on the Nikki Medoro Show. Where's Nikki?
There I am. Thanks for joining us. I thought it was it.
I'm like, well, why is it me? What's happening?
This is the Nikki Medoro Show, second part of the show. Thank you so much. Let's click that thumbs up button. Please click the thumbs up button. It really helps us out. Shows our support of the show. If you want to become a Medorable, please do join our Patreon. The link is right there, theNikkiMedoroShow.com. TheNikkiMedoroShow.com. The link to the Patreon and past shows is there. Also, a reminder, and Kim reminds us of this all the time, we are also in podcast form. If you can't watch, maybe you just don't have a screen in front of you, you're driving in your car, we're on pretty much all the podcast apps. So just look for The Nikki Medoro Show, Spreaker, iTunes, all of those. You can take us with you wherever you go. And
so
it's
many
a
more
great way to support the show.
we have a lot of people listening by podcast. The numbers are really going up. And I will say that if you've downloaded the podcast and you're rolling around with us in your car, like where we're on the radio in the old days, that is awesome. And if you feel like you missed a picture or you want to go back, all of the shows are recorded on YouTube as well. So when you're back by your computer, you can type in the Nikki Medoro Show on YouTube and all those recorded shows pop up.
Exactly. The super chat is live. If you want to give a super thanks, a super comment, we read those throughout the show, and we'll give some thank yous throughout the show as well. Our PayPal is live, the Nikki Medoro Show @gmail.com. And of course, the Nikki Medoro Shop is where you get the merchandise, some of which is behind me right there. Happy International Women's Day. We do have some fun stories, crazy stories to talk about. But first, I just want to get to the San Jose homeless dashboard. So again, this launched, I think this launched today, if not last night. Okay. And so what it is, it's an idea by our new mayor, Matt Mahan. And when he was running for mayor against Cindy Chavez, said he wanted more accountability. Where are we putting our dollars? And is it working in that direction? I do want to say thank you to KTVU. Here's a little bit more about the dashboard and what it will actually show you.
Navigate through the San Jose Housing Department's website and under the Data tab, a new dashboard and resource designed to hold city leaders accountable in ongoing efforts to reduce the number of unhoused residents.
I ran on the idea of increasing transparency and accountability in government, and this dashboard just represents the kind of data reporting we want to be doing.
First-term Mayor Matt Mahan is like most residents. He's seen the problem grow into a Goliath that's visible from many street corners and parks and parking lots and sidewalks. San Jose statistics show the city has 6,000 unhoused residents. The vast majority are unsheltered.
Let's try to reduce the number of homeless deaths, the number of people on the streets, and get people where they need to go.
The dashboard provides information on 3 main data points: programs, results, and funding.
And then measure the performance of every strategy we are pursuing and funding to get to that goal.
The mayor says the dashboard is in its early stages, just gathering information right now, but he hopes it'll be upgraded every few months to improve the process. Ultimately, Mahan would like to glean information from the dashboard to help drive public policy.
He's from the business world. Sometimes that's not a benefit for politicians.
Now listen to this.
University of New Haven political scientist Dr. Patricia Krause says the path forward for Mahan could present a political challenge if measurable success isn't reached.
With this kind of transparency, when you fail, it's a very public fail. And that can be used by opponents.
So I'll just stop it there. I mean, what do you think about that statement? And the dashboard in and of itself? Because when I heard about it, I kind of thought like what she was thinking. So now we have proof that what you're doing is or is not working. And homelessness is the most complex and expensive problem to solve. And one of the statistics, Kim, on this dashboard is something like 74% of people when they leave like a shelter, they don't know where they're going. They don't have the statistic. They don't know exactly where they're going. They don't know if they're going to this place, where exactly they're going. And so for these numbers to really work, we need to close that gap to start with.
I thought it was interesting how she said that he's from business, right? And when you and not politics, where they only talk about it when it's a success, when it benefits you in some way. But I wonder if because he's from a business, he's looking in real time and at what works and what doesn't, and maybe the wheels of how things function in San Jose will have a more quick kind of they'll be faster about if it doesn't work, pull it out. If it does work, so there's more of a response to what does work and what doesn't work, because here's someone from business who's looking at metrics, who's looking at numbers, who's constantly doing that and is able to say, yep, you know what? It's not working. We're going to be losing money. We're going to be losing whatever, as applied to the homeless situation, which actually may be a benefit. I mean,
but how quickly do you pull something? Because that's the worry
Yeah.
is, are you giving something enough time to work, and how long is too long and how long is too short? These programs take people, takes
Yeah.
planning, development. You're also dealing with people where, one encounter may not get them convinced to get even any
Sure.
services. So you have to, so it's the time that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
But it's a critical problem
Yeah.
that needs help fast, and no one else has done anything that, we've had Care Not Cash, we've had all these, satellite shelter, whatever. Nothing has done anything except, it seems to me, throw money at a problem, and some will say increase the homeless industrial complex, right? Where
Yes,
you're just throwing
exactly.
money and you're building these businesses that will take the money, but people are still homeless. So here's someone who's willing to try something different.
Mhm.
And yes, it will be a public success or public failure, but thank goodness someone is actually saying, let's try different stuff. Let's see
Yeah.
what works. Let's get in there and really, move these numbers around and see what actually makes a difference. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. And that 74% number comes from the question of, where do people go once they leave? Once they leave a warming shelter, one of those overnight warming shelters, 74%, they have absolutely no idea, or the person refused to say where they were
Right.
going to go. That is a key demographic that we need to address. You can find out where those 74% are going, as long as
Yeah.
it's not, I mean, if they're going to, the jungle or one of these, encampments, go there, go where they are and figure out how to fix it. But yeah, Randy's saying, how much success have we achieved with the massive money spent on homelessness up until now? Have we achieved any success? I would say no. Remember, that's why Governor Newsom wanted to pull all that funding from state homeless programs, because he's like, wait a minute, a 2%, or like actually a negative. That's the problem is, we're also drowning in homelessness, I think.
Mhm.
So even if we may be seeing some inroads with certain segments, the amount of new homeless is so overwhelming. And so that's why we have to stop those people from becoming homeless. And I'll add, with the end of the eviction moratoriums around the Bay Area and places like Alameda County that may be coming, those numbers may grow simply because some people
Oh.
just don't have the means to stay housed. It's
Yeah.
sad. It's really sad. So we'll keep an eye on it. I think that I will say this. I like it. I think that it's for a new mayor. I think it's ballsy, right? To lay it all out there and be like, okay, let's see what's working, what's not working.
Yeah.
But I think the devil's in the details. If something's not working after 6 months, do you pull it, like Kim was saying? Do you give it more time? What kind of milestones, what kind of goals are we setting? And are those realistic when we're not talking about, computers? We're talking about people and all of the things that go into that. And, variables such as the weather, the rain, the end of moratoriums, eviction moratoriums, all of those factors have to come into play. But hopefully we'll learn something from this. So you can find it on the City of San Jose's website if you want to dig into it a little bit.
I hope people will give him a little bit of grace to kind of figure this out, to get it, the dashboard up and running, and to realize that he's doing something and putting himself out there when most politicians would not. And so if there are failures, other people may have had those too. This will just be a more public style of failure. And I hope people will realize that and go, yes, it didn't work, but look at him go. Look at him go on to the next thing. I'm not a resident of San Jose, but I feel like, if this works there, he could really be setting the stage for something that works across the state.
It could work anywhere. I mean, I think any sort of data point, any sort of information, I hope can help, but I hope it also doesn't muddy the conversation. Right. Because again, we are talking about people. So, but I agree with you. I think I hope it's successful. I hope we learn something, and maybe there's an answer that we couldn't get because we didn't have something like this. And when we do, it might become more clear. So we'll see. Kind of staying in big problems facing not just the state of California, but the country. I want to talk about Governor Newsom's decision to break ties with Walgreens. Apparently, Newsom wants to end all relationships between Walgreens and the state. They're under review. There's no specifics because they don't even know what that means. It could, lead to problems with insurance and what's covered and stuff like that. Walgreens is being criticized because it says it will not dispense the abortion pill mifepristone in certain states after 20 Republican state attorneys general sent letters threatening legal action.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of bowing to pressure, even though it's still technically legal for them to dispense the pill. Texas judge wants to halt abortion pill access with the two most commonly used pills for abortions. What do you think? Do you think Newsom's going too far? Do you think that this was unnecessary? Or do you think that this is like, no, this is on this International Women's Day, Women's Month, this is women's health care that Walgreens is refusing to give?
So yesterday when you were with Marley at the hospital, I went to town on this one.
Oh, good.
I am so proud of Governor Gavin Newsom and whether it means nothing, because whether it means that California and Walgreens, really, there's no teeth to this or not, or whether it means, as just reported today, that this could mean an end to Medi-Cal and other insurance partnerships with Walgreens, could affect patients. The state is a big buyer of pharmaceuticals and Walgreens sales could be impacted. So whether it has that kind of real big impact or nothing, I think the fact that Governor Gavin Newsom stood up, put the spotlight straight on Walgreens for having zero backbone and saying, oh, we're scared of lawsuits in states where this is legal. I think it says, no. And it tells the state of California and all residents here, if you care about women's reproductive rights, look at companies like Walgreens and don't go there. Don't shop there.
Exactly.
I'm not going there anymore. I feel, as a woman, I feel betrayed. Am I going to take this drug? No. Should I have the choice to if I so chose? Absolutely. Right. And so Walgreens didn't stand up for women. They didn't stand up for their customers because they're scared. In states where it's legal, the states where it's not legal, that's a whole nother story. But states where it's legal, you preemptively decide not to sell this medication for women. No, unacceptable. So I'm proud of Governor Gavin Newsom for doing what's right and calling out Walgreens and saying, that will not stand here in California. And by the way, California is a state with the most Walgreens, like 539 Walgreens in our state.
Well, it's not as if, we can't just shop at Walgreens, even if the governor is breaking state ties, right?
Sure.
To it. But I think it's access. It's reducing access. And then you factor in this lawsuit out of Texas that alleges this drug, mifepristone, is not safe for use in medication abortion because they want to stop it being allowed to be mailed to women who live in some of these states. Now, this is the thing that gets me and kind of the tie between what Walgreens is doing preemptively in states where it's still legal. The FDA, not a court, is the one that has the final decision on whether or not this drug can be mailed safely to women. According to one analysis, the courts do not enforce the law. The agencies, like the FDA, have the power to decide not to enforce the law. But just because the FDA can exercise enforcement discretion doesn't mean it will. It could decide that it's unlikely that the FDA would go after it if it continued to distribute the pill. But there's a lot of companies that are like, you know what? I don't even want to get into the conversation and go up against these anti-abortion people. So I'm going to do like Walgreens is doing and just step out of it completely. Not understanding the harm that is causing for women who live in some of these states. And that's why I think that's why the governor is so pissed off about it.
Yeah,
it's not as
understand.
If, well, they're cowards then.
They're putting their fear over lawsuits ahead of the health, welfare, and safety of women.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And it's scary. Because unless you're a woman, honestly, I think that you can't fully grasp the desperation you must feel when that decision is taken away from you. It's insane to think that the government has a say in what you do with your own body. It's just, and you guys know how I feel, how Kim feels about this whole thing, but it really does speak volumes to where Walgreens as a corporation stands. They could have stayed the hell out of it altogether, right? They could have just continued to do it unless it was not legally allowed, but they're proactively doing that, and that speaks volumes.
Yep.
Mo says, statement from Walgreens is a statement of fear and not the ability to fight monetarily to be able to do fair and clean business throughout the country. Money is the whole issue. Yeah. Karen says Newsom did the right thing. Now, if he will only tackle PG&E and their crimes and profiteering, absolutely, hands down, thank you for that, because my God, Newsom, you are just blowing it when it comes to PG&E. Square says Walgreens already exposed themselves. No matter what happens now, they tilted their hands. Yep, absolutely. Karen, never liked the vibe in Walgreens. Didn't go there unless I had to. Never will again. I mean, I can't really tell the difference between a Walgreens and a Rite Aid and a whatever, but I'm pretty much probably right in the middle of a Walgreens and a Rite Aid where I am. And a CVS. I think I have everything around me.
Yeah.
Yoga room. Oh, put that back up. Let me read that one.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh no, I lost it.
It's okay.
I was scrolling through.
It's okay.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, here we go. The yoga room says, FYI, Walgreens is owned by an Italian guy through Boots Holding. Curious if he's anti-abortion because he's Catholic. I don't know. I didn't know any of that. I don't know anything. I can't answer any of that, but
no,
people should not put their religion, right, into something like this when it impacts so many people. And Karen says, I have yet to hear about lawsuits against these companies, which brings to mind, how do these big corporations feel about these archaic laws? Will they support it or will they bring lawsuits? Yeah. I mean, we're just going to see how this plays out. And if the news tide will change where Walgreens just wants to ride it out. But, if people really don't go to Walgreens anymore, maybe it will make a difference. We'll see.
I mean, maybe a lot of people don't care, but I've always been someone who votes with their wallet.
Yep.
I mean, I think a lot of people, if it doesn't affect them, they if they're, they don't care.
Yeah.
But I feel like a decision like this affects all women and affects all people, really. And you have to take a stand for young women, just like the women before us did. Absolutely. And we have to show with our wallet that we'll rather get our medication, our whatever we're buying. I was going to say our female maxi pads, whatever it is that we're going to buy at the drugstore. We're going somewhere else. Yeah, I'm going somewhere else. I don't know about you, but I'm done. If you don't want to support women, I don't want to support you.
Well, look at Louise. He's supporting women. Louise with a $10 donation to our super chat. Happy International Women's Day. You are wonderful role models to your daughter. Thank you,
that's
Louise.
So nice. Yeah.
And on this International Women's Day, I have to share. Yeah, I have time. I have to share this story. Now, this woman, Amanda Dibert, she's a comic book and television writer. I've been trying to get her on the show. I've been trying for months. Okay. I keep following her on Twitter and things like that. But she wrote this story. Now, this was last April that she wrote this. But it stuck with me and I found it again and it's insane. So obviously she works in Hollywood and we've talked about, gender pay gaps and things like that. But when you experience it yourself, I think it changes how you feel about it. So she wrote this thing for newthinking.com. And if you want to read the whole entire article, I included it in the show notes. But it basically starts off with her describing how she's getting more and more jobs, but she's not being paid anymore for them. And she really wanted more money. And she says this. She says, I gathered all my courage to stand up for myself and plead my case. I was raised to be a very docile Southern woman. So it really took a lot for me to even advocate for myself at this point in my career. I'm still working on this part of myself years later. I was proud of myself for taking a stand, and I very respectfully laid out my case. I have seniority over some of the other writers. I also do extra jobs. My scripts are as good as the guys, and I don't get extra notes or do less valuable work. So I would like to make what the men on the writing staff make. Yeah. Doesn't seem unreasonable, right? So then her boss, she says this. My boss then looked at me. Now, I should also preface this by saying Amanda's a lesbian. Okay. So she's with her girlfriend or whatever. Okay. So that's just a side note. My boss then looked at me and said, I don't have the budget to give you a raise, but I know that one day you and Kat, my at the time girlfriend, but now wife, want to have kids. And I would be honored if you would use my sperm.
What?
Sure. She writes, I did not know how to react. I was speechless. None of my what if scenarios about how this would go had included this moment. And then, because I was uncomfortable and I did not know what to do, I started laughing. We're a comedy show. I thought maybe he was attempting a terrible joke. Instead, he looked at me with hurt in his eyes and said, I'm serious. Don't use, and then I guess there's some coworker, the male coworker. Now she says, to be clear, there was no world where I was planning to make babies with any of my coworkers. Kat and I did get married and did eventually have a child, but this was not that moment. I realized he was dead serious. I had asked for equal pay, and my boss offered me his sperm. Now, if that doesn't take the cake of, the mindset of some people in this country, I don't know what does. I mean, imagine living in a world where someone is asking to be compensated and you think to yourself, you know what's equal to that? You know what might even be better than that? My jizz. I mean,
Listen,
I just don't even understand.
I don't have the budget for a raise right now, but here's what I can give you. How about a parking spot? How about a new title?
How about money, Kim? No.
How about
I do this,
better benefits? How about something else work related? I mean, it's you might as well have said, listen, I can't give you a raise, but hey, if you want to give me a blowjob, I can offer that to you.
That's
really?
basically, yeah. I mean, there's no, it blows my mind. And I know that this is Hollywood. And after Kim's news, I'm going to bring another kind of Hollywood type story to this International Women's Day, which doesn't sit with me right. It really, really doesn't. But I'll get to that in a moment. But just the fact that not only did he offer it, but was serious, and then it was her saying there was actual hurt. She says sperm to fix the pay gap. He offered a lesbian sperm instead of equal pay. This is a real thing that actually happened to me in my first TV writing job, and I still can't believe it. But then get this, Kim. She says, I wish I could say I quit. Worse things went on to happen there, far worse, which is probably unsurprising considering this reaction to a normal pay raise request. My advice to any and everyone working in an industry: do not ignore red flags. Get out of toxic work environments as soon as you're able. But if you want to talk about toxic, my God. It's
that's
absolutely
wild.
It is. Yeah. So again, if you want to read the whole thing, I included it in my show notes. Amanda Dybert, she writes a bunch of different things. So if you want to follow her, I follow her on social media. She's quite clever. But yeah, that story has always blown my mind since I read it last year. Okay, but when we come back, we're going to kind of stay in Hollywood in this International Women's Day. Yesterday, we were kind of talking about the Oscars with Chris Rock. There's another storyline that is playing through the Oscars. And of course it is between women. And whether if one woman wins and another woman doesn't win, is it a ding on female empowerment? Is it a ding on diversity? And should women be able to advocate for their success, and how many women that are like them have not been honored in this way? Because of course they have to online pit very talented women against each other, not just for the Oscar, but just for advocating that you should win. And it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But you guys tell me what you think about that, because maybe I'm just reading this wrong and I'm getting a little too sensitive on this International Women's Day, but I don't think so. So we'll get into that after Kim's news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. This next story comes specifically because I'm on the anti-Walgreens kick. Here it is. Food, candy, and beverage sales at a Walgreens in Mill Valley suspended because they've got a rodent problem. Here's another reason not to shop there. This story coming from Ron 4. They sent out a reporter to that store last night, said the one of the employees said they've been told don't sell food items from their store. They didn't tell the employees there why or how the Walgreens on Shoreline Drive was infested with apparently rodents, but this picture showing the food stocked on shelves with signs on the front saying all food, candy, and beverage sales are temporarily suspended. Again, that's at the Walgreens in Mill Valley on Shoreline Drive. Steer clear of that. The president is rolling out his budget proposal. That will happen on Thursday in Philadelphia. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre claiming it will cut the deficit by nearly $3 trillion over 10 years. It will include raising the Medicare tax on those making more than $400,000 a year to extend that program for decades. We've been talking a lot this week about the Alex Murdaugh trial. And there's a story here. Let's take away President Biden because the story is not applicable. But Alex Murdaugh's older brother is now speaking out for the first time. Randy Murdaugh saying in a statement, in his opinion, he says his brother's not telling the truth. Alex, a prominent, once wealthy South Carolina attorney, was given 2 life sentences for the murders of his wife and youngest son in 2021. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis urging President Biden to allow an unvaccinated tennis star to compete in this month's Miami Open. Novak Djokovic applied for a coronavirus vaccine waiver. His request denied last week. It looks like Tuesday, DeSantis called the government's decision unfair, unscientific, and unacceptable. No, Djokovic made his choice, so that's the way it goes. Researchers with the University of Virginia rolling out some new training that they say will help the autistic community. The training piloted earlier this month with EMTs and with students. It's said to help improve communication between first responders and people with autism in the event of an emergency. And lastly, there was an alligator stolen as a hatchling nearly 2 decades ago, and it is finally back in its home at a Texas zoo. That gator, now almost 8 feet long, was living in a nearby backyard the entire time. Animal World and Snake Farm Zoo in New Braunfels said last week that a woman who used to volunteer at the zoo allegedly stole the gator hatchling and just kept it as a pet. Who does these things? A game warden accidentally discovered the gator while in the neighborhood on a separate investigation. The woman has been cited for 2 misdemeanors, illegal possession of an alligator egg and possession of an alligator without the proper permits. I don't think you would have gotten the permit to keep it in your backyard. Just a guess. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, call Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL or MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, give Steve a call. We're hoping he will be able to come on with us in just a moment before the show ends. But let me just tell you, even if he's not able to come on, you guys have to call him. Kim, we've talked about this many times. The lack of sleep that you get when you're worried about things like this. Also, the amount of money that you could be leaving on the table because you're getting bad tax advice, bad ERC advice. You're going to someone that doesn't want to put in the work, which I totally get. Not everything is created equal, and that includes in the tax world and the tax attorney world. So give Steve a call. Again, 888-TAX-DEAL, MoskowitzLLP.com. He will talk to you. He'll explain it to you in normal language. All this like lawyerese type of stuff. And he's a great guy and he'll really, really help you out. So please give him a call. Okay. Happy International Women's Day once again. The Oscars are coming up this Sunday. It's on Sundays. And 2 women that are up against each other, which is fine, obviously, is Michelle Yeoh and Cate Blanchett. Okay. There they are. Now, Michelle Yeoh, of course, is nominated for her first Oscar for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And it is thought that Cate Blanchett is her main rival to win, okay? And Cate is nominated for the role in Tar that Tim Sika loved, right? He loved that movie. And she, though, has 2 Oscars. She's already won twice. Okay. So the article that was interviewing Michelle Yeoh suggested that acting Oscars are very rarely, if ever, won based on a performance alone, underlining the importance of award season campaigns and whether voters feel a nominee is quote unquote overdue for a win and their film has captured the zeitgeist better than its competitors. So, and we've heard about this, like you have to campaign. Some people don't want to campaign for the Oscars award. You know, those the DVDs that they would send us, you know, that's a campaign. That's all like, look at this movie. It's really, really great. I, for instance, have always said that that Denzel Washington should have won an Oscar for John Q. I loved him in that movie. He did not win for that movie. And then I think he won the next year or a few years later, and he was overdue for it, is what a lot of people were saying. Some people say no, he totally deserved it for that particular movie, but that just goes into what you prefer. But here's where it gets kind of touchy. Michelle Yeoh shared the article on Twitter. And she was saying this, and this is what was kind of highlighted, and I have a picture of it, but I'll read it to you. It says, if prizes were handed out, Oscars were handed out purely on merit, it's difficult to believe that only one non-white woman would have taken home the Best Actress Oscar in 94 years, especially considering that people of color have been in front of the camera practically since the inception of movie making. And I don't think that's a wrong statement to make. But Michelle Yeoh is being vilified in some circles for posting that article. A One Blanchett fan wrote, but then deleted, quote, I've lost so much respect for Michelle Yeoh for posting this. The winner of the Oscars should only come down to the acting, not how many awards someone has already won. If Kate has 2, it's because she deserved it. And I feel like this is a narrative that always happens when women are competing or are up against, let's just say, an award, a top job. All of a sudden, it's like we have to get them fighting with each other instead of just lifting them up and letting the cards fall as they may. What is so wrong with Michelle Yeoh being like, you know what? I hope I do win. She's won so many awards this award season. It doesn't seem like a far stretch to think that she's going to win. And what's wrong with promoting yourself and saying, you know what? I am the damn best person for this award. I worked my ass off. It's a great movie. I did amazing acting. But no, all of a sudden it becomes this tit for tat in the social media world where, oh, it should just come down to this, when we all know damn well it never comes down simply.
No, it's a big campaign anyway.
Yeah.
But I wonder, you know, why do both things have to be true? Why can't she say, hey, in all these years, a person of color hasn't won or whatever.
Only one person, Halle Berry.
Only one, right?
Paul, yeah.
In all these years, this happened. Conversely, you know, the best person should win, which may be a person of color. In all those years, really, Halle Berry was the only person of color that had the. So, I mean, she has a point. Why can't you take the point and not have it mean that she's saying I should win solely because I'm a person of color?
Right.
It doesn't. Those two things are not, you know, mutually exclusive. I just don't agree with that. Why you have to come down on her for posting that, because it doesn't mean she doesn't want the best person to win.
She just believes she is the best person, as she should. And Randy asks a question that I feel like we get a lot when we talk about things like this. Randy writes, why does she need to play the quote unquote race card on this Oscar stuff? Okay. When people say those things, and I don't mean any offense, Randy, I really don't. Because it matters. See, it's like, oh, you know, let's just call it what it is. White people, right? White people have been winning the awards for decades, let's just say in the Oscars. And now all of a sudden, someone that's not white, and we're not supposed to make a big deal out of it. We're not supposed to acknowledge it. Why not acknowledge it? It's different. It's a ceiling that's being broken, at least hopefully again and again and again. And I feel like when people say, oh, you're playing the race card, no, it's just weird, right? I mean, for lack of a better word, that in 94 years, only one non-white person, actress has won an Oscar. I mean, that seems hard to believe, that only white actresses out of all of them in 94 years, only one Black woman has had a good enough performance to win Best Actress. That can't possibly be true. So then when we bring up the race thing, it's because we want to draw attention to this.
And why is it playing the race card to point out a fact?
It is a fact. Exactly. It is a fact.
I mean, why is it playing the race card to say, hey, check out this statistic? Doesn't mean I'm going to win or lose, but,
right.
Let's have it in mind as we go forward.
No Black actress had won since Hattie McDaniel won for 1939, Gone with the Wind. Was she up for Best Actress or Supporting Actress?
It was supporting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what so Best Actress, leading actress was Halle Berry. She was the first that did it. But I'm not saying no Black woman has won it, but in this particular category, only one leading actress in a movie has won an Oscar. Oh, Karen writes in an interesting point. Maybe Asian actors need better roles that go to maybe white actors usually. Good point, because we also know that throughout history, there's been a lot of white actors portraying people of different races, right? So that opportunity to be in those iconic films was taken away or not given to them. They weren't given the opportunity. And two, there has to be money. Who was it that said it? John Leguizamo. John Leguizamo made a great point about, using people of different races to portray people of certain races. And he's like, we're allowed to make crappy movies too and not be shoved off to the side like, see, people didn't like that movie, so we can't make all Hispanic, all Asian, or fill in the blank movies that aren't at least majority white. You're allowed to make crap movies. White people do it all the time. There are so many crappy movies that have all white casts throughout, generations. They're allowed to do it too and still get funding for all of these films that may have majority Black or majority Hispanic or whatever, or a mix. I like diversity, I hope we get to a point where we don't notice whether it's an all Black film or a more diverse cast or whatever. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. And maybe it's because we won't let it go, but I don't think that it's also fair for us to say, well, now that we're seeing more diversity and now that, oh my God, we may have 2 non-white women winning Best Actress, let's just stop talking about race altogether because we can check that box. We're not there yet, people. We're not checking that box yet.
Can I bring up Crazy Rich Asians?
Yeah, that's
because I feel like it won. Didn't it win the Best Picture Oscar? I think it won.
I'd have to Google that. But that was a great example of an all Asian, majority Asian film. And remember the outpouring of support, not just from the Asian community, but from a lot. Like I see like my life, or at least people that look like me on the big screen in a movie that's raking in the dollars.
Right.
And that was groundbreaking at the time. And now it seems like, we're seeing it more and more, which is awesome. And I just want to continue doing it. And I think the way that you continue seeing those sorts of things is by bringing attention to it, going to see these movies, which in turn will tell the business of Hollywood to fund these movies, which is what we need. It's expensive.
Right.
And you need to do it. It's something that has to happen. And I don't think there's, I'm not going to knock Cate Blanchett. If she wins, I haven't seen the movie, but again, I remember Tim Seeger really liked it. I think it was in his top 10. He really liked that movie. So obviously it's a really good performance. It's a good movie. And if Michelle Yeoh doesn't win, I'm not going to say, oh my God, Oscar's so white. But I don't see that there's anything wrong with Michelle Yeoh saying, I really hope I do win it. I hope I am another woman that's a non-white actress that wins this accolade. I don't think there's anything wrong for that to happen. Randy, so when you get there, there's no timetable on this, Randy. It's kind of like pornography. You know it when you see it. I think that we're not there yet, right? When people stop being upset, how about that? When people stop being upset when we talk about race and these things, and it's just like, yeah, and then we move on, perhaps that's it. But we're not there yet. We don't see it in the investments. We don't see it in the accolades. We don't see it yet. Just similar to the homeless dashboard. When the analytics show us that we're there, maybe then we could talk about, but then I don't think we would need to talk about it, right? All of these things would happen at the exact same time.
Does it tarnish a win by a person that is not of color, like say a Cate Blanchett, if she does walk away with the Oscar for Best Actress? Does that kind of put a little sour taste on it? Or, did she win because she deserved to win and on we go and we don't look back?
I mean, I'm not going to be in an uproar if Michelle Yeoh doesn't win. I will say it'll be odd if she doesn't win, given the fact that she's won. I think she's won it in every major award category so far that I know of. She won it for the Golden Globes. She won it for the SAG Awards. So it's not a stretch to think she'd win it for the Oscars. Not saying she has to, because then why have the Oscars if it's going to be the exact same as the SAG and the Golden Globe? So, and I'm not going to knock the hard work of Cate Blanchett. I think that there's something fundamentally wrong with doing that as well.
Yeah.
So we just need to take it for what it is. I'm just saying the conversation leading up to the awards, I don't see anything wrong with Michelle Yeoh bringing attention to the fact that she may be number 2 in the 94 years of the Oscars. I see nothing wrong with that. And I hope it's a great night for everybody that's nominated because it's huge. Eric writes, I still see people arguing racism is over because we had a black president. No. Kim, we aren't there yet. And unfortunately, we got taken back 50 years under you know who. I don't know if we went back. It's just that those people that like it back there came out of the woodwork more, right? Amy Brown, I'm assuming you're talking about everywhere all at once, everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah. A lot of people love that movie. Critics love that movie.
I thought it was so good.
It was too like you had to pay too close attention to what universe we're zapping to now, and it was too much. Like I'm like, I gotta go. I can't get through this one.
Exactly. I loved it. I was totally fine with it. I watched it when I was in the hospital with my daughter. I thought it was so good. And Kim says, shouldn't have to force diversity. We should be embracing it. Absolutely. It feels good to embrace it. Honestly, for those of you that are like, why do we have to talk about diversity? Try just embracing it a little bit more. I feel like your worlds and your community just open right up when people feel welcome. And it makes the world a better place, in my opinion. Jim says there's an idea to remove male and female and just a lead actor to include trans. Will this change the lead female being white or not? Oh, I don't know. I think any sort of diversity doesn't matter. During the Grammys, right? Sam Smith, and I apologize, I'm blanking on her name, but it was a trans woman was the first one that had won the award, and she announced it. I would have never known, and I had no problem seeing it. Crazy Rich Asians did not win any Oscars, but won PCA, SAT, etc. Okay, thank you for that. One more quick story about how women on this International Women's Day. Did you hear this story with Sharon Stone? Now you know Sharon Stone, right?
Yeah.
What is one of her more iconic film roles, Kim McAllister?
That would be Basic Instinct with the legs crossing and uncrossing.
Okay, so can you believe that 10 years later, she says that she lost custody of her child because of that movie?
Really?
She was on an episode of
painted as a slut or something? I don't know.
Yeah. It's not part of a stretch. On a Tuesday episode of Taylor for Two with Bruce Bozzi, she was sharing a story. She says, I lost custody of my child. The judge in this custody battle asked my child, a tiny boy, do you know your mother makes sex movies? This kind of abuse by the system, this kind of abuse that I was considered what kind of parent I was because of that movie. She added, people are walking around with no clothes on at all on regular TV now. You saw maybe a 16th of a second of possible nudity of me, and I lost custody of my child. I ended up in the Mayo Clinic with extra heartbeats in my upper and lower chamber of my heart. She was married to Phil Bronstein and divorced him in 2003. She wanted full custody, but was denied. And she says it was because the judge denied it. And she believes because she was in that movie. The judge said he denied it, denied Stone's request to move her son from San Francisco back to LA, and said that Stone had a tendency to overreact to various health issues with the child, and that the husband was able to provide more consistent care. But can you believe that? And this was 10 years after that movie that the judge brought that up.
I mean, I don't know how hard it is to change judges, but I'm immediately filing some type of complaint with the court. I'm immediately filing for a different judge. I want a different judge on this case.
Yeah.
And I want a formal apology that you would actually say that to a small child. Really?
She also says that this is what happens when actors are unfairly conflated with the people they portray. She says the guy that played Jeffrey Dahmer, no one thinks that he's a person who eats people. It doesn't turn him into a serial killer who eats people or make him an antisocial person. It makes him a very complex person who took an incredibly difficult part. You know, and this was obviously a while ago that this happened. Since then, her son actually took her last name in addition to her ex-husband's last name. So, you know, the relationship is still good, but can you believe, you know,
No.
and that's the whole thing on this international, the reason I bring it up is women just face more obstacles still in this day and age, from being offered sperm instead of money to being treated as if you are the character in a movie you are in. It's just ridiculous. And there's progress, but not enough, my friend.
It just angers me. We put these bigots and these misogynists in charge, and we say, you get to make the decision over someone else's life, over
It's
what
crazy.
happens there.
And it's not fair, and it shouldn't be. God. And again, it's, I think what happens when you also interact
Karen.
with men on some of these things. It's a male judge. You think a female judge, I mean, I'm not going to say a female judge wouldn't have said it because there's some idiots out there, but a man looking at an actress and saying that she's the same person as a character she plays. Exactly. It would not have ever happened to a man, not in this day and age.
Well, and I would argue that it doesn't matter if she's the biggest, sluttiest, hoe-baggest porn actress in town. You don't say that to a child.
No, you don't. Did you know your mom was in sex movies?
No, you don't say. It's highly inappropriate, and it has no bearing on the case.
Yeah. Well, you know, we just got to stay strong, Kim McAllister, on this International Women's Day, Women's Month. Happy International Women's Day to everyone out there. Thank you so much for everybody that supports the show. Please click a thumbs up before we end it. And again, please consider joining our Patreon. And yes, thank you, Louise, $10 for donation for this International Women's Day. Go to theNikkiMedoroShow.com, theNikkiMedoroShow.com. You'll find links to share with your family and friends. Get them to subscribe. We want to get our subscriber numbers up. Keep going up, up, up. Sky's the limit. And also consider donating to our Patreon, becoming a monthly Medorable. We appreciate you guys so much. The PayPal email, as well as the email address to reach us, theNikkiMedoroShow@gmail.com. And of course, the merchandise that you see behind me. There's so much more on the website, theNikkiMedoroShop.com. Tomorrow, we're going to have Jefferson Graham on. He's going to be talking about some tips, some tricks with the phones. You can be a professional photographer, and all you need is the smartphone in your hand. I have Kim. We both have moon pictures, so he's going to tell us what we did wrong and what we could do right. I need some other tips and tricks that he's going to share with us as well. So everyone, tune in tomorrow, noon Pacific or anytime, and bye-bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.